everybody's just freaking out about critical race theory with good reason. What's up, everybody? I'm Quisha King, and I had a little bit of virality in the last, 48 hours when I was talking to the Florida Department of Education about banning critical race theory, which it passed. Yay! Now I see all these questions of what is critical race theory? That's not really critical race theory, what they're teaching. Show me the curriculum, all these types of things. So I'm going to explain how it's being taught, what it is, what I've come to understand about it. We're going to go over those things. I didn't just wake up Thursday morning and, hear about a meeting about critical race theory and just shoot down there and spill out some stuff that I just kind of sort of heard. No, I've been learning about critical race theory for some time now, probably at least over a year, because I first came across Marxism and, from the economic standpoint of Marxism, the proletariat and bourgeoisie, that sort of thing. In reading about that, I ran into cultural Marxism, which is more of the psychology as opposed to the economics of Marxism. It's more of how do we ingrain this into society? How do we push the Marxist doctrine in a way that we can see the revolution that we didn't see with Karl Marx. So I started reading Antonio Gramsci. I started reading Vodi Bakum. I started reading Neil Shenby. He was actually probably one of the very first people that I heard talk about critical race theory, intersectionality in a more academic way and giving a broader explanation of it. And that's how I started doing this. So I didn't just hear some buzzwords and march myself down there talking about things that I had no clue about. So I have some sources here with me to talk about what critical race theory really is and what it is not. So here is some of the things that critical race theory is. And this is from Fault Lines by Vodi Bakum, for what I'm reading from, because he gives a very academic, detailed analysis of what it is. Yes, he is a minister, but he is also, I would consider him a scholar as well. So this is not just from a faith-based, it does in his book he goes into the faith-based part, but he is not coming from it from what I'm going to read. He's not coming from it from a spiritual aspect. Kimberly Crenshaw, she is a protege of Professor Derek Bell. He used to be a professor at Harvard, got into some, there was some beef back then, and he had issues with that. However, he is very influential in this push of critical race theory. Kimberly Crenshaw, Richard Delgado, Robin DiAngelo, those folks. According to UCLA, which is where Kimberly Crenshaw used to be a professor, I'm not sure if she's currently a professor in 2021, but she used to be. So UCLA, this is from UCLA. Critical race theory recognizes that racism is ingrained into the fabric and system of American society. Critical race theory states that racism is ingrained. It cannot be extracted. There's no way of getting rid of it. It doesn't matter. No matter what you do, nothing you can do about it. That's what critical race theory says. The individual racist need not exist to note that institutional racism is pervasive in the dominant culture. What's the dominant culture? White people. This is the analytical lens that CRT uses in examining existing power structures. Okay, so we got racism is ingrained. The dominant society controls it, monitors it, and has all rule over it. And it is those people who are ruling over it, pushing it into all of the existing power structures. Okay, so we tracking. CRT identifies that these power structures are based on white privilege and white supremacy, which perpetuates the marginalization of people of color. So it's ingrained, White people control it. It benefits them. It is based on their white supremacy and on their white privilege. And all of those things are pushed into the fabric of America. So that's from UCLA. This is Richard Delgado. This is how the four worldviews that he espouses for critical race theory. Race is normal. The usual way society does business. The common everyday experience of most people of color in this country. Racism is normal. Again, ingrained into everything that you do. Convergence theory. Racism advances the interests of both white elites and working class whites. Again, back to white privilege, white supremacy. Anti-liberalism. Questions the very foundations of the liberal order. Not like Democrat liberal, but liberal as in equality, legal reasoning, enlightenment rationalization, and neutral principles of constitutional law. Now that's important because critical race theory comes from legal theory, which was a study of how the legal structure is set up, and that statistics and how we rationalize and how we find data and things like that. That is ingrained into white supremacy and white privilege too, because their opinion is that all of these things are data, statistics. You can't really trust it because it comes from the white privilege, white supremacy. Knowledge is socially constructed. Storytelling, narrative reading is the way Black people forward knowledge versus the science reason method of white people. So we can't, as Black people or any person of color, any person outside of that white heterosexual yada yada yada, can't rely on science and data and reasonable methodology to construct your thoughts. You have to rely on just individual stories. That's it. Narratives, what I experienced. That's why you see a focus on a lived experience. You see a focus on lifting up Black voices. You see the focus on marginalized voices. That is what that comes from, because you can't trust any other type of data source. You have to only speak to people who have these lived experience. So those are the basis of critical race theory. Those are the foundations of critical race theory. Now, in class, the curriculum is not official. Teachers are not, okay, boys and girls, pull out your critical race theory books. We're going to be studying that today. No, that is not how its outworking is in a classroom. For instance, when my daughter, the conversation that I heard that she recorded from her class was they had some new books that were coming in, and it was a language arts class. Makes sense to talk about the different types of books that they were going to be reading and the different types of themes that were in the book, and what prepping the kids for what they were about to study. Totally fine with that. That's good. On board, 100%. However, when she started talking about the books, some of the books had some racial themes, racial conversations in them. I think one of them was, I want to say it was like Moby Dick, or it was, I forget which books they were. But so she brought up the conversation about race and discrimination and all of these things. And so she started asking the kids what their thoughts were about these things. Okay, not totally opposed to it yet, but what the conversation turns into, and this is led by their teacher, it goes into breaking them down into their little different groups. Oh, so you Black child A, how do you experience discrimination and this is that? And then now you got all these kids just telling all of these stories of discrimination or what they deem as racism pointed towards them with no context around it. No, it's just what they have perceived to be racist or what they have perceived to be discrimination. It's not an evidence-based teaching. This happened to me, so this is how I felt. It's like, okay, well, I can hear you, but I need to be able to correct, especially as their parent, I need to be able to correct your, if you get something wrong. That this does not need to be taught in schools or discussed in that type of way in schools, because it lacks a evidence-based structure. It was a very one-sided conversation. Everything was about grievance, grievance, grievance. It was just complaining. It just turned into one big complaint session. And that is not uplifting for any child. That does not give them a positive outlook that they can achieve, that there is something. When you are, especially in a classroom setting, there is an assumption of integrity and honesty and those. It's just like when you go to the doctor. When you talk to your doctor, there is an assumption of I'm going to be giving good information. I'm going to be, this is a room where I can feel like I can trust what we're talking about. If all of that information that you're getting in that setting is negative, what do you think is going to happen to the children? So that is that's how it's being taught. It is not an official school curriculum. They're weaving it into different topics that are official school curriculums. And some of the things that the schools are doing are good. Understanding where different people come from, understanding their cultures, understanding, their backgrounds. That's good. I think we should expose our children to different backgrounds, cultures. That is a wonderful thing. I wouldn't be the person that I am if I've lived in the South. I've lived up north. I've experienced many different cultures. I've experienced many things in life. I feel like I've had a very full, well-rounded life. I wouldn't have been able to be exposed to those things if I wasn't exposed to different cultures. I want my children to do that. It has benefited my life tremendously. However, I want it to be done in a way that doesn't put one race down and lift another race up, or lift one group up and put another group down. Are you comfortable with every time they see somebody that has less melanin? If you're a black child, I don't even care what color you are. If you are comfortable with every time your child sees somebody that has lesser melanin, a white person, you want them to think of them as just automatically having white supremacy or some beneficiary of white privilege. That's what you want them to think. That's how you want them to view the world. You don't want them to have an objective look at people, to say, oh, well, let me get to know the person. Let me not judge them based on what they look like. At the end of the day, that's the question we have to ask. Do we want our children to look at white people and think that they are automatically a recipient of white privilege and are a white supremacist? Or do we want them to look at black people and think that they are automatically a victim and oppressed? And I will not stand for any teaching of that to my child. So that is what I am talking about. That is critical race theory, in my estimation, on the many readings and videos and blogs and all of these things that I have read. That is what I understand. Many scholars understand it the same way. That's what it is. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know what you think about critical race theory in the comments section below. Let me know if you see this as a problem. Do you think it's okay? You think it's just a way for people to, do you think it's a proper way to teach children how to look at society? I think that's the better question. Do you think it's the proper way to teach children how to look at society? Let me know in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching. You guys have a great day. Bye-bye.